10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
It would help if I took that off right after I did the intro. Bells and bells. What's going on, everybody? Coming back to you guys on a Shotgun Saturday impromptu show. Yeah, we're gonna see how this one goes, y'all. Got a tag team partner, Joey there, and we're welcome to invite to the show. Platinum Swords with us, one of our loyalists here at Bells and Bells every Tuesday night. Gentlemen, good evening to you.
Good evening. How's
Joey,
everybody doing?
Joey, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Are you sure about that? You don't sound good now.
Well,
you sound upset.
After 6 hours of watching this Mr. McMahon series. Oh man, we got a lot to talk about that, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
Exactly.
Right.
We're gonna dive into it. We got Old Head in the house. Old Head, what's going on? Appreciate you tuning in. Yeah. So we're here to talk. First of all, let me ring the bell. The series dropped on Wednesday. Mr. McMahon, the Netflix series. This is the series in collaboration with Netflix. They did the recording back in 2022. I believe that's when they started it. And they just released it. Lot of thoughts and whatnot. We're gonna dive in. We're gonna give our own thoughts to this thing. Overall, as a whole, and we're gonna dive into it absolutely. Overall, as a whole, presentation wise, what do you guys think?
I mean, it's presentation wise, the directors and everything. I thought they did a fantastic job, and I've heard a lot of the criticisms, the comments about it. And I kind of don't agree with a lot of them. And I'm talking about from people on Facebook that have talked about it. I'm talking about people. I've watched some reviews of it on YouTube, just and some other places, just to see what other people were thinking. I kind of don't agree. You heard Bruce Pritchard in part of it, and this is kind of a spoiler, but Bruce Pritchard talking about he thought it was like a smear piece or whatever he called it. I can't remember what he called it, like a gotcha piece,
right?
Where he felt like it was going after McMahon. I didn't really feel like that. I really felt like it was a true documentary laid out. Now, could it have painted him in a nicer way? Sure. But would that be genuine? We'll talk about that. And then a lot of people are like, well, this is already just stuff I already knew. And it's like, was it? Because I knew a lot of this stuff too. But then again, at the same time, to me, seeing the way McMahon talked about it and the way, a lot of the top stars he had in the past, and then Tony Atlas and this author and the reporters and all these people talking about it, that was the interesting part, kind of hearing their take on it and their historical look at it and stuff like that. I thought that's what made that show, was all the different sources of kind of information, and then the way it came across. And then, so that's kind of my thoughts on it. I didn't think it was just ho-hum, like the same old stuff rehashed. A lot of it was, but a lot of it was kind of like a different take on it and a different way of putting it out there to me.
Yeah. Platinum, I'm gonna go to you. Then I'll pick you back.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it was softball. That's what it was to me.
Okay.
The entire thing was softball. It seemed like a WWE presentation to me, up until the last episode.
Okay.
That's what it felt like to me. It did. It honestly felt like a WWE presentation of like, this is your life, Vince McMahon. But unfortunately, everything came out. And, then it became a hit piece, for lack of a better word, but it wasn't. There was nothing that was said that really shocked me.
Yeah, there was like, I like to think that I, know a little bit about freaking history and whatnot. I learned a couple things from that whatnot. But like you said, and that I was going to get to whatnot. And we're gonna dive into like the details about it, but it's like, but it it came up like it did come up like one of the something that like they do for the network. It was like, we're gonna tell you, but we're not gonna tell you. So a lot of folks was freaking guarded. I believe.
The only person I enjoyed out of that was Tony Atlas.
Exactly,
because he was the only. Well, we'll get into that, but he came across as genuine, and really just telling it like it was in his opinion. Now, is he the most well-spoken guy? No, but he was kind of speaking. He kind of sounded like he was actually kind of speaking from the heart and speaking from the way he really felt. One thing I want to note is I watched the producers of this series speak about it, and they were talking about how crazy it was working with Vince McMahon. And this is a point I'm going to talk about, especially when we talk about the first episode.
Okay.
Vince McMahon would, they'd set a time for like 3 p.m. to start filming. Vince's secretary would call and like stall. And this is what they said. He would stall. They would stall and be like, oh, he's going to be an hour late. And then it's a few hours late. And then they were talking about he wouldn't get there till 11 p.m.
What?
Then he would go to like makeup and stuff like that for an hour. And then they'd start filming at midnight. And like all the wrestlers that they were filming too, a lot of them had to sit around and wait and stuff like that. But the crazy thing was, like, it was like Vince had to be in control of the entire situation. But in the dumbest and weirdest ways. It's like, what kind of control do you feel like you have to, and that's kind of the point. That's kind of the feeling I got from Vince from the whole thing. Was Vince McMahon's personality overall to me is that he needs to be in control of everything at all times, and when he's not, it ruins him. It throws him off.
Mm-hmm.
More to me, it seemed like he's the type of person that won't accept no for an answer.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's what it seems like to me. And if it constantly is no, then he'll find some way for you to say yes.
Yeah. Well, all right. Let's speaking of that, let's get into the first episode. The first episode, was really the backstory of Vince. We got the story of him as a child. Now, remember, this is according to Vince.
Right.
Growing up in a trailer in North Carolina with his mother and what he claimed was an abusive stepfather. They didn't cover McMahon's claims about his mother being abusive that he made in Playboy back in like 1999, but apparently that was a thing. But he didn't talk about that on the show, and so he talks about not meeting his dad and realizing his name was McMahon until he was 12 years old, and that's when apparently all of a sudden his dad wanted something to do with him and started taking him on the road. And then we got the whole thing about, him being infatuated with Dr. Jerry Graham and his character. And then if you guys notice, like, go back and watch it if you didn't notice it. When they were showing Dr. Graham, like Dr. Jerry Graham, on one of his entrants, he kind of did the Triple H water spit thing. And it's like, man, that's kind of where that came from. Like, you could tell now that a lot of that was borrowed. A lot of Vince's things and a lot of the stuff he bestowed on other people were borrowed from Dr. Jerry Graham's presentation in pro wrestling back in the 50s and 60s. And it was interesting to see that. But the whole conversation about, his insane upbringing, him being driven around town, running red lights and driving crazy with Dr. Jerry Graham and saying, "Ooh, this is what I want to be," and all that stuff. That was interesting, as it kind of moved forward and we got into like the talk about, starting to learn the business under his dad and come into that.
Absolutely, and I love that historical reference to Dr. Jerry Graham, and whatnot, the flamboyance, the over the top and whatnot, and it kind of serves as a it kind of like serves as a foundation for what we would see from him couple decades later. When he was doing his thing with when he took over with WWF. Absolutely.
Well, no, y'all keep going.
No. Please chime in. Yeah, absolutely. Please chime in. If you got something, please chime in. Absolutely.
No, yeah, go ahead. Keep going, please.
One thing I'll say about it is what I just said a minute ago is kind of what I took from Vince on this.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell. Okay. this is an overview of the whole thing for Vince. I don't feel like Vince was ever being genuine in the entire 6-episode series.
Okay.
I never felt like that. So the thing is, what of this is he actually letting you know? Because that's the thing they tried to drive home in that first episode is too.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody really knows Vince.
Right.
Vince only lets you know what he wants you to know.
Right.
And I kind of got that was the feeling through all 6 episodes with what was coming from Vince's mouth. And so I feel like Vince was working the entire time. I don't mean doing work. I mean working people listening to him the entire time. I don't feel like Vince ever shot. I don't feel like he ever told the truth about anything holy. So that's the thing. You got to take it with a grain of salt what Vince was saying anyway. Was Vince abused? Was he not abused? Who would know? Because it's kind of like this could be just a backstory that Vince wants you to believe to get sympathy on you. Because let's be honest, even before we found out, like that, before he was speaking prior to the sex scandal stuff coming out, it's not like that was the first scandal on Vince. And we would get into that later. But that's the thing. It's like this guy is full of scandals and always has been. And it's like, who would know if anything he said was true or just an imaginary tale he made up about himself? And through that, I realized one of the things that I've always heard people say about Vince was, well, like, he's just a genius. Like, he's a genius or a mad genius. And it was like, he's not a genius at all. Like, actually, to me, he's an idiot. And the thing is, he was just very successful at very basic human psychology, right? Like, very basic stuff. He figured out how to get over. He figured out how to make wrestling work at a level, and he figured out the very basic things that he could build upon. And then he did that.
All right. Put a caveat on that, being that he did that where nobody else was doing that. When I would say he would be a genius, but I wouldn't say he's a genius, but in that instance, would you say he was more of a trendsetter or a?
Why would he be a trendsetter?
Well, I'm trying to find the right word for it. Maybe you could.
I think the way I think about Vince McMahon is that he was able to progress with the change of time.
Okay, fair enough.
That's how I see it.
But the point is, he tried very hard even in the first episode to get you to like him. Okay. And that's the thing. He came off as, I want you to feel sympathy for me because of my upbringing, and I want you to like me. And Mr. McMahon is just a character, and I'm me, and I'm really a good guy. Like, even though he never said that, he made me feel like that's what he wanted me to think. And I feel like nothing could be further from the truth, because at the end of the day, what you're giving him credit for in terms of success is really him being a piece of shit. What he did to all these other promoters and stuff like that he said he wanted to compete. If you wanted to compete, would you give people a warning, or would you just be a dick and start throwing knives in people's backs? Okay, that's not wanting to compete. That's wanting to put people out.
That's business, though. That's business, though. It's cutthroat. It's disgusting.
No, it doesn't have. But it's not.
You're right. It doesn't have to be. You're right. It doesn't have to be.
That's not the way the wrestling business was. Yeah. He changed all that.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
But here's the thing as well. When the National Wrestling Alliance, when they had all those promoters and whatnot, the alliance did the exact same thing to anybody who was outside the alliance as well. They did. So putting that into
okay, but that's different. That's
no. It's along this.
No.
It's true though. When it was an outlaw show popping up, yeah, that's kind of true. When an outlaw show popped up, yeah, they did go after them.
That's the exact same thing. Until the government stepped in with that lawsuit and whatnot, and they saying, hey, you cannot monopolize and whatnot. But in the open parts of the National Wrestling Alliance, that's what they did. If you can't,
NWA wasn't one promoter. It wasn't one company.
But it's the same premise though, Joey.
No, you're looking at it from a different perspective. When you talk about a territory that this promoter already had, and then another promoter opens up in what they call an outlaw promoter, right? Against the NWA promoter, the NWA would do what it took to preserve that territory and preserve that promoter there. How is that the same thing?
it's the mind, it's the mind, it's the mindset.
Yeah, it's
on the flip side, instead of the his territory, no, he's invading it whatnot. It's from a competition standpoint. When he's trying to eliminate the competition, just like those promoters back in the day, trying to limit either promotions from getting into their territories.
But the outlaw promoters came after the NWA territories. It's not like it was the other way. It's not like the outlaws were there first, and the NWA decided, I want that area now, and I'm going to take it. It's not.
Yeah, let's not forget though the territories. The majority of them were, individuals just owning NWA. Of course, they're going to watch out for everybody else that's in there.
It's a licensing thing. It always was for them to use the NWA World Heavyweight Champion and for them to be a member, a working together member of an alliance. But by the time Vince Jr. got it, that was not even a thing, really. The NWA had some territories. The AWA had their stuff. And then WWF was already an independent thing in their territory, but they were still all territories that kind of respected each other's bounds, even though they weren't all under the NWA umbrella. And that's the thing. Yeah. And then you go in you say you want to compete with people, but you don't go in and say, hey, promoter, I'm coming into this area and I want to run this building or whatever, and I'm just letting you know as a courtesy. That didn't happen. It wasn't like that. He went in, hired their top stars, then ran their towns without them knowing, and did nothing about it. And you can say that's the way business is, and it's like, but it wasn't the way pro wrestling was, and there was no courtesies with that. There was no professional courtesies whatsoever with any of that. It's him coming in, buying up their top talent, and then coming in and running them out. And he starved them out, and that's the thing. And then we'll get into it later where WCW hires up his stars and pays them more. And then he gets pissed about that in the most hypocritical jackass way possible.
Yeah. Sure.
But anyway, yeah. So episode 1 takes us all the way to the point where we're at WrestleMania 1.
Okay.
And again, I felt like with the WrestleMania 1 story, it's like, again, it felt like Vince wanted us to be sympathetic towards him. He's like, look what I had to do to be successful. I had to put my family's welfare on the line and borrow money and put everything up in this thing. And if it didn't work out, we weren't going to be successful. And again, it's like, okay, that's just one, at the end of the day, is that true? Who knows? Probably not. Because again, Vince wants you to think he's this poor guy that suffered his whole life and had to grind for everything. And it's like, okay, maybe, probably not. And it's like, you would never know if this was true or not, because the other stuff that was being said all the way up through the second episode where we get to WrestleMania 3 and everything was a bunch of bullshit. And if you couldn't tell, like the Hulk Hogan story about Andre not knowing if Andre was going to put him over, it's like, does anyone believe this shit? Like, does anyone actually believe that Andre didn't tell him like beforehand that he was going to put him over, that they just called it in the ring and that Hulk really didn't know? It's like Hulk has told this lie so many times that he really probably does believe it. And like the same shit on other interviews, Hogan has said Andre passed away days after that match. And it's like, well, did you do that?
He did.
Like, that you don't remember anything, like that you don't remember anything. Your timeline is all messed up. Hogan said he was on the plane with Kerry Von Erich right before he died. Not true.
Yeah, WrestleMania 4 was the very next week.
So it's like, it's another thing. It's like they're telling the story of everything. They even managed in episode 2 to try to convince us that Jesse Ventura was like the heel trying to start the union, trying to unionize wrestlers. What?
Right.
And that Vince and Hogan had to come to Vince's rescue and help out his buddy because, man, those wrestlers with Jesse Ventura, man, they were trying to uprise it. They really tried to paint Vince as the baby face on that.
They did. And you know what? I think Ventura got some closure with that, because Hogan actually said, yeah, he told Vince.
Yeah.
They actually came out and said it, finally.
Stooshed him out. Huh?
I know Ventura's like,
No, Jesse still holds a grudge on that. Jesse will never forgive Hogan.
I bet he does. Yeah, when you got a friend that betrayed you like that, or someone you consider a friend that does something like that, goes behind your back, yeah, of course.
But it's the fact that
I'd be pissed.
Not the directors of the documentary, but Vince and Hogan, it's like they were trying to convince you that they were the baby faces in this. Like they were the good guys, like fighting the evil Jesse Ventura, trying to unionize wrestlers and give them a better life. When I feel like the directors were trying to tell us the story about how crappy the conditions were for wrestlers at that time.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely true. And this is the whole problem I have with Vince and the WWE is there was really no regard for most of the talent on that roster. They were there because they needed the money.
Right.
And the only guy that was really being taken care of was Hulk. It was Hulk and Vince, and everybody else was just collateral. They were just there. And it's like, these guys were where the money was, and that's all. And Vince lets you know all he really cares about is money. Doesn't care
that's
about
how the machine was built.
That's a resounding theme in all 6 episodes for me, is that Vince does not care about people. He cares about money.
Mm-hmm.
Did you not get that through the whole thing? Even when we get into the stuff with him and Shane?
It was best for business. We heard that.
Yeah, that cute little slogan that everybody acts like's funny and entertaining, but it's really him being a piece of crap. Yeah,
right.
At the end of the day, when you have that many people, like that many wrestlers on your roster, and you just have fun with them while you drain their bodies of every ounce of blood, sweat, and use them up and toss them aside like they did everybody.
The man's a tyrant and heartless. Nothing else matters but his ego and making money.
That's literally the drive home point of this entire series. And that's why everybody calls it like a gotcha thing. But the fact is, I don't think it was a gotcha piece. I think
it was literally telling you. He was literally telling you. He really was.
He was being a piece of crap right on the camera to you.
And if you
didn't take it that way, then you didn't really get what you should have got out of it. But anyway, any more thoughts on that? Because I'm still going. We're talking about episode 2 now, kind of, because that's where we go from WrestleMania 1 through WrestleMania 3. And that's kind of the first part of it. If y'all got anything else on that one.
I mean, I felt the first 3 were softball. I felt they were all softball up until the last one. I felt
WrestleMania 2 was hot trash.
Definitely. Definitely.
From a fan standpoint, because that was around the time that I started watching and whatnot. And it was like from 3 different locations. As a kid, I'm like, oh dang, they're doing it from 3 different.
That was impressive.
That was impressive.
Just the show wasn't.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Mainly, we're talking about remember how much dead time there was during it. There was like dead time in WrestleMania 2 where they were just like, you just heard the commentators talking, but there was just nothing. They ain't got the matches lined up right. Nothing's happening on time like it's supposed to. Like the whole thing's just messed up. And that was what I mean
when I was young.
Because it was just like, it's just like something you never would have seen from like WrestleMania 3 onward with the World Wrestling Federation is just dead time like that.
Yeah, I remember renting it when I was younger. And if I remember right, it was like either 2 or 3 VCR tapes. Right. And each one was like it was just a slow, tedious thing. And then it goes intermission. It's like, oh, Jesus, really?
Oh, my God. Yeah. I thought that was the intermission. Really? Yeah. Well,
Chris got a comment. WrestleMania 3 was an anchor that saved that company, and it was a turning financial point for the company.
I like Dave Meltzer's take on the 93,000 and how he called that out for being bullshit. I kind of appreciated Dave on that one because he's like, come on, guys. Wasn't 93,000.
Yeah, he's holding his guns to that. But the thing is, that building held, the seats alone was 88,000.
Yeah.
That was 88,000.
An insane crowd. Yeah, but it's
I mean, and I know what 10,000 missing people look like. I'm a Dolphins fan, so I've seen what it looks like.
Yeah.
So when it says that, I'm like, I don't see it. The optics doesn't match.
But if it probably was 70-something thousand or something, it was a hell of a lot of people. But it's like, they
were too confident showing that crowd.
Whole lives, it was 93,000 people in the Pontiac Silverdome, and you just, but I like Dave Meltzer's kind of, passive aggressiveness and throwing some opposite remarks in there to kind of counteract everything. You got to appreciate Dave in a way for his contributions on the show, because he called out some stuff on there. But then we kind of get into the Rita Charlton sex scandal that kind of came around the same time the steroid trials were about to kick off. Yeah, so there you go. Still an insanely huge crowd, no doubt. Yeah, all they had to say was like 80,000 people, and the reaction, my reaction as a kid would have been the same. It's like, holy crap! Like, I can't imagine that many people in one place in an arena like that. But
it's a lot of people.
Yeah, but it's that whole standing out thing. When I think it's like the whole putting a number, putting the titles of the largest indoor attendance record type stuff, like to solidify the event.
Right.
The event
was a work, man. It was a work. They told us 93,000. We believed it.
Yeah.
So it's all good. But going back to the Rita is it Shatton or Charlton? I can't remember the sex scandal.
I don't remember. Yeah.
She was the first female referee in the World Wrestling Federation.
Right.
And she came out in the early 90s and accused Vince McMahon of raping her, and it was dismissed. And this is something I definitely am passionate about, because she came out, she was met with a lot of backlash about it, and she didn't necessarily even come after a lawsuit at first. She just made a claim, and she was kind of written off by fans, and it's still a thing I hear from fans to this day. Oh, well, she's just mad because she got fired. We've heard that over and over and over about men and women that left WWE over the years. Well, they're just bitter because they got fired. You hear that from fans and from journalists and stuff like that in wrestling alike. And it's a very much an internet wrestling community theme. And, and it kind of resounded with me because of where we would go later in these episodes. It's like she was just kind of dismissed, she's full of shit. And it's like, was she? And then we get into the steroid scandal, and that's kind of where episode 2, that's kind of the later part of episode 2, where we're kind of getting in the end is the steroid trial. Hogan, despite the fact that Hogan wasn't working for Vince anymore, he took up for Vince. He testified on his behalf, or he made
and give the dynamic, especially the folks around him, is like poor Vince. Vince was going through all. It's like everybody was coming for Vince. Like he
wore a neck brace on the trial, despite the fact that there's no reason to believe he was injured.
Turning his neck and everything. Yep.
He's working in front. He's working the federal government.
Yep.
Like, bro, this guy. Vince McMahon's not a genius. He's a carny. And he is a carny at a level you can't imagine.
If you pay close attention to how Hogan is speaking, it's almost like him and Vince were talking in the background. And they were eye to eye in what they were going to say. Yeah. Right.
There's never been. You could tell at the end of the day, they will always keep kayfabe on the stuff that they want to keep kayfabe on, and that will never be broken. And I could say, I'm going to tell you too, it's the same thing with Brett, Cena, The Rock. It's the same with all those guys that his top guys over the years, and Shawn Michaels too. They will always keep kayfabe on everything they ever wanted to keep kayfabe on until they go to the grave.
To the grave.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only time if somebody ever else involved. I mean, we'll get into this later when we get into more stuff like that. But then, like I said,
everybody that's watching, we definitely appreciate it tuning in. Yeah. If you got comments, please chime in, because we want we're giving our assessment of everything that's going on, but we want to hear your thoughts as well. So we put up on the screen, and we'll definitely talk about it. Yeah. Go ahead, Joy.
No, it's okay. And then so kind of that's where episode 2 wraps up is the steroid trial. That was the big theme at the end of it. Vince, Vice. The channel? No. I feel that way too now. Is that the people who make Dark Side of the Ring? Vice?
Yeah.
I mean, they probably are kind of assholes.
It might be, but Outside the ring is kind of entertaining too. But yeah, go ahead.
What I mean, and like Hogan, the big thing about Hogan lying in court too, saying he never, or lying on TV, saying he never used steroids.
That's right.
Yeah.
Lying on TV, and then everybody coming out being like, bullshit.
Everybody.
Dr. D was like, you know what? You guys blackballed me. I'm gonna wreck your shit right here on TV. And he told him he injected Hogan himself. Whether he did or not, who knows? But he was coming after Hogan.
Hey, is it my imagination, or did it seem like the same thing? Like Vince and Hogan were like talking to each other, seeing like how they were gonna do this show.
Yeah, probably.
Because they were like in lockstep for the most part.
Because they're equally full of shit and equally good at trying to. I mean, I say that good at. Hogan's a bad liar, and honestly, Vince is not the most. I think Vince believes he's good at like the way he verbalizes stuff, and he's not that good. Like I think he believes his own. I think he believes he's better than he is at working.
Yeah, Chris thinks
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason they cut it down to 6 episodes too. I heard that from the producers too. It's because of the whole scandal came out. They had over 100 hours of just Vince. But they said one taping they did with Vince, he sounded like a frog the whole time because he had lost his voice somehow. So they don't know how that happened, but all that footage they shot was unusable. So there's that. But it's like, any other thoughts on the scandal with Rita as a Chatter? I wrote the name down and I can't even read my own writing.
Chatterton?
I think it's
Chatterton. I would say Chatterton. I think that's what it was.
Yeah. Anyway, Rita, the WWE referee. Any thoughts on that of the steroid trial?
No.
Yeah, at the time when that happened, I didn't know anything about her.
Same.
I found out about it later, of course. And at first you're like, whatever. And then you see I know it's going to come up like the stuff on Donahue.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, wait a minute. All right, this thing might have some traction to it. So I think that's when everybody started going, okay, wait a minute, there's something wrong here.
Well, when we were kids also, we didn't know anything about any of this stuff. So at the time, definitely, I wasn't thinking anything other than
okay. Chris didn't have a private eye there, Joey. Yeah,
what do you mean, how would I know all this? Exactly. What do you mean, how do I know all what? I watched the documentary. No, but anyway, so episode 3, that's where it kicked off with the new generation of the WWF. Obviously, Hogan left, Warrior was gone, Macho Man soon after. It was kind of, somebody else had to take over, and that's where we got Brett on top, and we got Shawn also kind of coming up and getting on top, and a lot of it got Razor Ramon. They definitely showed a lot of Razor on there and being a big star of the new generation, all these guys. So what do you guys think about that transition?
It was definitely good. It definitely had to make that change. By the trial and everything, it had to clean up the image, the direction they had to go to. But the biggest takeaway from that was that your talent doesn't have to be big old burly, juiced up men to put on a freaking good show. Yeah. So,
well, my opinion is I'm glad it changed. I'm glad they did that because as when I was younger, all I knew about wrestling was a 5-minute bear hug. And I'm like, what the hell? This sucks. So everybody shrinking down, got back more towards NWA style wrestling. So I appreciated that.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of those guys were still on gear, but the thing was, they just weren't huge guys.
Right.
So it was like,
right.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, and I know this from being around guys who were in the business at this time. What those guys basically went from was like your real injectables, like even your D-ball and things like that, to pro hormone, essentially the same stuff. Sammy Sosa, Mark McGuire, and all those guys were on those oral pro hormones. So that's why Warrior, guys like the Ultimate Warrior and Lex Luger lost mass but they were still like built and shredded. They just were they just lost 30 pounds, of mass because they couldn't maintain it on the weaker steroids, essentially. I mean, Brett, Sean, Tatanka, all those guys were on here, all of them, and they were they were just smaller guys, so it was harder to kind of tell, and they weren't just used to jacked to the gills like Hogan and the Warrior. And we all knew when Macho Man came off the gear because that's when he started wrestling in a shirt. Like, his belly got a little bigger and his arms got smaller. He started wrestling in a shirt. I mean, I'll be honest, that's what happened. And he got
same
fat.
with The Rock.
Oh, The Rock. Well, The Rock wrestled in a shirt because he got gynecomastia surgery.
Yeah, the bitch tits. Yeah, that's from taking too much. Yeah,
which is what? It's a telltale sign of steroid abuse.
I'm sorry. That's what it's called. That's how I know it. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, to
my
be honest, I
apologies.
know all about that. I work in the medical field. So I worked with surgical recovery for 2.5 years. So,
So Chris is surprised that Brett did coke.
I'm not.
I'm not.
Brett. That WWF locker room, all wrestling locker rooms in the 80s.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, just watch the old school one with the Road Warriors that there was somebody recording backstage. Do you remember? You guys remember seeing that?
They were all, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was at the Crockett Cup.
Was it?
I think so, and they were all hooked up.
Yeah, they were all on something, all of them.
Look at all the promos from back then. Macho Man, Hogan, Warrior, all them just veins bulging out, eyes bulging out. Come on, man, y'all all coked up.
My favorite one is Savage and Warrior together.
Yeah. Duggan, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, man. Good Lord Almighty.
Oh my God.
Like those guys.
And the thing, the most messed up one was the comments, Jake.
Yeah.
I
worked shows with Jake Roberts when he was in his sweatpants era in 1998. Or in 1999, he was wrestling in sweatpants, and he just was a hot. I mean, he just rolled up into the shows. You could tell he was effed up from like the moment he got there on indie shows, and it was like, wow, Jake, like this Jake the Snake Roberts, man. He's got a duffel bag out there. There's no snake in it. He's it's just a pillow in there, some crap just slinging around in sweatpants with his boots unlaced. And I'm like, bro, come on, Jake. And he's just worried about getting the next rock. He wasn't worried about paying bills or nothing. But one thing I forgot to mention, they talked about the WBF and how that got canceled because of the steroid thing. And but you know the story behind the WBF too? Like at the time, because of the steroid scandal, the IFBB, which is the real big leagues of bodybuilding, started drug testing. So they went to the WBF so they didn't have to get drug tested. That's how he signed bodybuilders to the World Bodybuilding Federation, was they didn't want to get off steroids. So they all came over there. And then they were out of a job and didn't go back to the IFBB.
That's something I did not know.
Me neither.
Until a couple years later, when the IFBB quietly stopped testing, and we went back to bodybuilding being what it was. But about that, and that was a point too, because that's Vince's first like major fail. Like, damn, dude, that was a dumpster fire. And
and I remember watching that.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah, they start promoting it and whatnot. They try to do a pay-per-view, some stuff like that.
Yeah, but Luger was hired to be a part of that, not wrestling.
He was Yeah, he was
right.
So, well, anyway, yeah, we got into the new generation, talking about how they had to change things, get the new stars. Then we get into the time period where WCW, where we get Ted Turner, who now Vince tries to portray him as the heel, that Ted is now excited to compete, and he gets Eric Bischoff, so he gives him time on Monday night to compete, so they start Nitro, and here comes the bad guys, WCW.
I was in it like. It was taking all our guys. Like, dude, you literally just did this like freaking 10 years before.
Right.
Like, come on, dude. Like, you literally did the exact same thing. Like someone else with deeper pockets come up. Promise your guy
I could do it.
More money than you could. Wisdom and a lighter schedule. More money, lighter schedule. Who's not going to take that?
Come on, man.
It's the attitude of I can do it to you, but you can't do it to me. That's that attitude.
Again, back to my point about Vince always has to be in control. He has to be. That's his thing. He psychologically, he can't stand somebody else being in control, and he can't stand the thought of somebody else having more power than him. And we have to drive this point man up. Like, he doesn't understand that the money Vince McMahon had, you can take everybody. Tony Khan, Ariel, what's his name from KO? You put all those guys together and they don't have Tony Khan money. Let alone Shad Khan.
Yeah.
These guys, you could put the entire board at TKO together, including The Rock, all those guys together, and they alone, that whole group, the holdings board, add Triple H in the mix too. They don't have the money Tony Khan has by himself. So that's what people don't understand. It's like, well, the McMahons might come buy AEW. It's like, well, they can't afford AEW. Like,
why would you want to buy it?
They couldn't. It's not even first. It's not for sale. And then again, they can't afford it because there's nothing they can offer the Khans that they can't just write off. Like, those guys have billions and billions of dollars in their family, like far beyond anything Vince and all those guys put together could ever dream of having. And that's what they don't understand. That's what people don't understand. At the time, even Ted Turner had 10 times the money Vince did or more. Like, so there wasn't no stopping him. And then, Vince,
that whole thing was it truly was like that perfect storm, It was like Turner, he like brought in like around 89 ish, whatnot.
Yeah,
they were just close by. Then Eric came on, they wanted to compete, whatnot. Coming off the steroid trial, boom. Everything was falling into place for like of that situation to be up to one up this. It was everything that like.
There was another narrative on that show that wasn't true either. That kind of talk about, well, WCW just had no good stories or anything like that in the early 90s. They were just kind of floundering.
No, they weren't.
I don't think so.
No. Like even in the early 90s, like Mid-Atlantic, they had some freaking great stuff. Yeah. They had great stuff and whatnot. So that definitely wasn't freaking true.
That didn't make no sense. I'm like over here, and Eric Bischoff said it too, and it's like, you full of crap, man. You don't even know what you're talking about. And what's worse is,
it's the freaking never whatnot. Because they're running a lot of the hokey, cartoonish type stuff and whatnot. They were appealing toward into that lower demographic, whereas that Mid-Atlantic, they were giving us wrestling. They were giving us wrestling.
Right.
They was giving us those storylines. It was a little more edgier than that current WWF product or whatnot. They just with in regards to executive producer authority and leadership on that front. That was that time.
Yeah, tell me.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I feel like you don't get to talk, man.
No, because no. It's fun. No, I wanted to go back to Damn it! No, I forgot.
Okay. When you remember, chime in.
All right, so just bulldoze through. All right, I will.
Yeah,
All right, continue. If I remember, I'll just both throws through.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Please do. Yeah, we'll get you back in. So my point is too about early 90s WCW. Exactly what were the matches with like Sting and Vader, Dangerous Alliance? How is that ripping off WWF? What about WWF TV at the time with those type of angles? You know, we got you remember the Brian Pillman yellow dog angle? We talked about that. That was an old Florida angle. It's like, what? How were they ripping off WWF and trying to imitate them? These seem like old school angles. Remember the Sting and Rick Rude match for the U.S. title? That was a Mid-South angle where Luger clipped Sting's knee. He had to go to the ambulance. Then he came back hobbling in with his knee all bandaged up and wrestled Rick Rude. And Rude had to still cheat to win. That's a Mid-South angle. Like, these angles are not from WWF. They're from old school territory wrestling.
Sorry about that. I had the fan right here. Is that buzzing gone?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Sorry. I had both of them on. Sorry about that.
Now, my dogs are barking.
Actually, it's definitely it was a different presentation and whatnot, but it's not like WCW wasn't bringing it, you know.
Isn't it?
They're bringing it. Yeah,
To me, it seems kind of funny that for someone that tried to go against Southern wrestling, he sure as hell is using a lot of Southern wrestling tactics on TV.
Are we talking about Vince?
You know, yes, everything about it, everything except for, of course, with the exception of the dim lights and stuff like that. As far as the entertainment that comes with it, the show, the fights and whatnot. Because, like I said earlier, before it was slow. Everybody's just hugging, doing these sugar holds and all this other stuff. And I'm coming from the hood, you know, I know what a real fight looks like. That's not a real fight. Mm-hmm. You know, then when I see the Midnight Express and Rock and Roll Express beating the hell out of each other, I'm like, okay, I'm with that. So
those guys are going.
Yeah, that's how I feel. That's how I feel about Vince. You know, he used everything that he was against. He had to use Jim Ross, Southern.
Yeah.
He didn't like that accent. He used them. He had one of the best ever.
Yeah. Which JR's kind of style came from your Gordon Soley and your Lance Russell. You know, people, that old family kind of grandfather type of commentary presentation where he made you feel comfortable and made you feel like your grandpa was talking. That's the Southern style, like
right.
Absolutely. All right.
And honestly, the WWE, that style they would become, is from Memphis. It's all from the Lawler, the Jerry King Lawler and Jerry Jarrett playbook.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's something.
I don't hear anything.
Hey, I'll mute myself on this side, buddy. Hold on.
No, yeah. Well, all right. But yeah, we're about 12 minutes at the top of the hour, Joey. In the timeline, where we're at on the timeline.
We're still on kind of episode 3. So now we've covered that. Let's get into 1996, which was the debut of the NWO.
Right.
And prior to that, the curtain call. That was a big thing they talked about was Madison Square Garden, the curtain call after the match between Shawn Michaels and Diesel at the main event of that show. And Shawn was the champion defending there. And then we got the Clique out there all hugging each other, saying goodbye.
Yeah. So, it's like it makes you wonder: did Vince truly know what they was going to freaking do, or it was not? But he told trying to do whatever, whatnot. But for someone who's such a control freak, whatnot, you tell me you didn't know that was gonna freaking happen. Then like, oh, someone's had to pay for a Triple H. You gonna have to eat shit. Like,
what bothers me about that is that wasn't that a house show in Madison Square Garden?
Yeah, non-televised.
And why in the hell is everybody gonna get so upset over that? You know, because he already exposed the business years ago.
And
years before that.
Why did they have to show us it on TV? Because we saw it in TV in 1996 too, the clip about it. And
We sure did.
So if you didn't want us to know that, why would you show us? Right? So that's where
You got a
it's
point.
definitely a work. It's like,
Yeah.
why would you show us if you didn't want us to know? If this was something you're embarrassed by and you wouldn't want the rest of the world finding out what happened at Madison Square Garden, you wouldn't show that, would you? But that whole thing about Vince punishing people,
Yeah.
A lot of fans act like, well, that's just how Vince is, and it's like, it's effed up. It's stupid.
You got a point.
Oh man.
I mean,
So,
well, I got to punish somebody now, and you're going to have to make an example out of you for a whole year. And he was going to win the King of the Ring, and then we gave it to Stone Cold. Like, whatever, dude. I don't believe a damn word of that.
oh man.
Yeah, none of that makes sense, does it? None of that adds up. None of it adds up. I think Vince was just pissed off they were leaving. Why not just come on and say it? He was pissed off they were leaving.
He let him go, though. You know, they
Yeah.
they tried to convince him.
Apparently, they want to say like, hey, this is what they're paying me. Tell me you can match that and I'll stay.
Yeah.
You didn't want to pay it, so
Or give us more time off, whatever it was, that they wanted at the time, because they got, they were getting paid oodles of money and got more time off. In 1996, Nash, Hall and Nash were two of the hottest damn people in wrestling. So, they were freaking red hot. So it just didn't make no sense. Again, okay.
work less days, make more money.
Yeah. And then the next year we get into the continuation. We go again. They talk about the NWO a lot and how that changed the business. Of course it did.
Yeah.
And then in 1997 we get into the trouble with Vince signing Brett to a 10 or 20 year contract.
It was a 20-year contract. Like, who does that?
Ain't no way I'm believing there was a damn 20-year contract.
At that point, 10 is a freaking stretch, but 20?
And he was already in his 40s, I think, in 1997.
No, here's the thing. They said a 20-year contract. They never spoke them out either. Like, 20, I can't afford to pay it. How much was it that you could freaking pay? This is over the course of 20 years. I was baffled on that front there. They exposed all of this. They exposed all of this, but it's like, I can't afford that. I can't afford that the contract that I signed to see if you can get the WWE deal.
Yeah, and didn't he give all that money to Tyson?
He did. For promotion and
yeah. But that's the start of how you knew. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, but then again, as messed up as Vince is and everything, there is a lot of genius in that dude.
Okay.
Those are a lot of genius moves. Look at what he did. He took all that money from Brett, saw Stone Cold, was gonna be somebody, and strapped the rocket to him.
Yeah, but that's the point. Did he take money from Brett? No. I don't think he did. And I don't think there was ever a 20-year contract. And this is why I think this whole thing, from the beginning, it just seems like stupid work and not great. And that's the thing. And then we get into the Montreal screw job. And I'm gonna go ahead and make a easy point here. I will say this over and over forever. If it happens on TV, it's a work. There's nothing real about the Montreal screw job. And if you believe that it is, you don't know the difference between a work and a shoot. There's nothing real about the Montreal screw job. It is so fake and obvious. It's pathetic. Case in point, when we get into the talk about, did he freeze up and drop out?
Yeah, he did it. As soon as he moves again,
maybe he'll be back in a second.
Yeah.
But this is the point. 3 stories on the punch, right, that we heard about on there. One was Brett telling the story of hitting him with an uppercut, which, how do you get hit with an uppercut? Comes up under your jaw most of the time or somewhere like that, right?
Right.
The other story was that he hit him in the temple. That was from Vince. But then Bruce Pritchard tells that he had this big black eye. Now, How does any of that make any sense to you at all? Three different versions of the punch, and they don't add up.
Oh man.
Then after the match, Brett's smashing monitors. So you're telling me this stuff is real, and everybody's just standing there while Brett throws an adult temper tantrum and starts smashing the monitors that we've seen a ton of guys do in the first place. Even prior to that, we saw people pull the monitors and smash them, and it's a work. So it's like this guy's out there throwing an adult temper tantrum out there, smashing monitors, and he hawks up a loogie and spits it on Vince. And suddenly everybody's like, oh man, this is real. And it's like, and at the same time, coincidentally, they were shooting a documentary. And Brett's got a microphone on him in the back. And they're shooting footage in the locker room for this documentary while they're all shooting back there with Triple H and Brett's wife and all this stuff and Owen and all this stuff like that. And they're like, man, he really screwed him that night. That was so controversial. And it's like, they literally were shooting everything in the back. What did they tell you over and over in those first episodes? Vince doesn't what? What does Vince never do?
He let you see what he wants you to see.
And he never sells. He says never sell. What did he do? He sold on that documentary camera. He came out holding, like from the punch, like wobbly and walking on camera. So you just told me Vince never sells. Vince doesn't sell, and that's his thing, is never sell. And then he sold for Brett on camera for a documentary. And you think this is real, people?
I'm gonna be a fan, doggone it.
I mean,
I'm gonna be a fan. I'm gonna still be a fan.
Brett and Vince's credit, they will take this to the grave. Man.
Right, they will.
But Sean Waltman and Kevin Nash were on an interview drunk, and they both were like, dude, this is such a stupid work. Like, it's not even good. And if you listen to them explain it too, it's like, Sean Waltman's like, you cannot convince me Brett didn't see that. If this was real, but Brett didn't see that coming a mile away. And it's like, yeah, man, you to this day, there is nothing about that whole situation. Name me one thing about that whole encounter that looked real.
Oh boy. They did a good job though, didn't they?
No, they're just keeping kayfabe.
For the general population, Joey.
Yeah, and that's the point. It's like people think, well, everything's out there now. Kayfabe's dead, and it's like clearly it's not. When they want to work you and keep kayfabe, they still do.
Oh man!
Just saying, like when the boys are coming out saying it was a work, come on, man. It's like, and when you look at it again, when you've got Bret Hart sitting down in the locker room with a mic on him, on a documentary, and Vince is selling for Brett on the camera for a documentary, and they just told you for all these hours Vince does not sell. They literally made a point to tell you that. They were telling you in this documentary that the Montreal Screwdriver was a work, and that everything Vince does is a work. They're sitting there telling you, and you didn't get it, people. Like that's the take home. We'll get to that later. Anyway, so we're right at the end of episode 3. I know we've been going a long time. We're at an hour, but we'll try to move this along for everybody watching and everybody that will see this later.
Yeah.
All right, episode 4, we get into the birth of the Mr. McMahon character, and that's when we get the question, right?
Right.
What's the difference between Vince McMahon and the Mr. McMahon character?
Well, I'm Vince, and the person I play on TV is Mr. McMahon.
We're completely different.
It's two different people, and the lines aren't blurred.
And then everyone else said they're the same.
It's like it's you turned up for a couple of freaking notches, man. So it's
was
like
it Hogan that said Hogan? So one of them said they're exactly the same person. One of them said that.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, what's up, man up? Yeah, so it's like, okay, Vince is the only person that said they were like two different things entirely, and everyone else is like, nah, they're the same. So it's like, dude, you can't say they tried to make Vince look bad. Vince made himself look like a liar and bad at the same time.
And that was truly like you said, like the steady thing, whatnot. Like,
Yeah.
like it came out your mouth, dude. Like you literally, like a lot.
You're not even a good liar. Like, it's not, like you're full of crap, and everyone knows it. It's like but he didn't want you to think he was a womanizer and having all these affairs. And it's like, bruh, everyone else says you did.
Maybe that part in there is like, you really want to know what I'm thinking? And he said something along the lines of sex. I'm like, dude,
yeah.
you literally tell him.
How are you not the same as your character? Like, because it seems like you are. And then we get into Vince has to create new stars because WCW took all his stars. Oh, poor Vince. All his stars taken by big bad WCW, the bad guys. And then he had to create Stone Cold, The Rock, DX. We got that whole boo-boo story about how the big bad, the heels, WCW had to take all his stars, and then they were beating him for 83 weeks. So Vince created his own stars. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, well, yes, but I feel like we don't give the talent credit enough. And it's like, but the point was made that Vince didn't get Austin to do that promo at King of the Ring. Austin made that promo on his own behalf. Austin got himself over.
Yeah, and they saw the fruits of that labor the next night.
Yeah, and the other guy that got Austin over is Bret Hart in that WrestleMania 13 match.
Yes,
that got Austin over like hell. That's when they really started. He became the uber baby faces after that. Yeah. But they painted it like Mr. McMahon really got Austin over, and it's like, no, by that time he was already over. Like that just helped, with the longevity and a good not opponent, but good antagonist for Austin. Yes. Credit where credit is due, but Vince didn't make Austin. Like, it's just what it was. He was very fortunate that Austin got over and caught fire like he did. And then Vince went with it, which was smart. However, you don't really owe Vince for Austin getting over. Austin.
Yeah. But after Austin, Rock, Cena, Lesnar, Orton, and others, he really created his own stars like Roman Reigns.
Yes, but he doesn't deserve all the credit. We got it. The theme in there was Vince did this, but it's like, yeah, but the talent deserves some credit too. And it's like, and that wasn't a point made there. The point, I felt like Vince was trying to drive home, and a lot of his cronies, his top stars were trying to be like, well, Vince makes everybody. And it's like, I mean, okay, if you want to be a shill, be like that. But Vince was just, a lot of times Vince was very, very fortunate when stuff happened in his company, and and so we got that. And then we get into Bret leaving, Owen Hart kind of, and then we get into Over the Edge.
Yeah. The should have, could have. It's like, the statement he makes right there is like, if it was me, I would want the show to keep going.
Like, they scraped my dead body out of the ring and scooped me out of there and let the show go on. It's like, what kind of sick dude are you, man? Like that was sick the way he said that. It was kind of like, dude, dude is messed up.
No.
And
oh boy,
anybody with morals knows that show probably should have stopped. Like, it just should have, and they should have refunded people and let that be that, and then do it, have these matches on Raw or something, the rest of them, or whatever.
Exactly. There are ways they could have did that. Absolutely. So
that's definitely a morality thing right there. It's kind of
that
like
was,
and then you're pushing the like they did say and this is something that like the journalists, and I can't remember who exactly said it, but they were like, yeah, these guys just watched their buddy die, and then they got pushed through the curtain saying, "Go have your match."
Yeah. Jeff was getting ready to go out there. You can see he was shaking him and Deborah. So it's like,
yeah.
So it's like
It's messed up. They shouldn't. They had no business putting him back out there to have to wrestle a match while you just found out your one of your best friends passed away. Especially in Jeff's case, because he and Owen were close, and we all know that.
Yeah.
That's a fact. So, like, to
Phil Musher. Yeah. So, all right, let's take a little bit of time on that. When I was watching this, Joey, and the reporter kept going, I'm like, this is like Joey's best friend right here, because just like everything he was saying was like Joe, I bet Joe was back there clapping like someone got the ball to expose his.
No, because Vince was trying to paint him as a heel.
Yeah, that reporter was coming after me.
It's like, you kind of deserved it, bro. Like he was. Look, he did a look. You don't see me. I don't freaking try to report on this stuff, but yeah, he did have it out for Vince, and I don't know exactly why. I'm not back there clapping for him. I'm just thinking, damn, man, Vince is trying to make us hate him.
Yeah,
I don't hate him. I just feel like he didn't like Vince McMahon, and he kind of wanted to expose him.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad they brought him. They brought Phil Mushnick on there, because it did create that dynamic. Like, whereas you do this here, like dude, like you're a jerk. You're an asshole. You're this. You like you doing X Y and Z. Yeah. What not to get to point A to point B. So it's like,
damn, Phil Mushnick coming after me. Man. Trying to make me hate you, trying to make him a heel, and like whatever. But yeah, Owen, the Owen death, it's like, I never once thought to myself, man, Vince tried to kill him to get back at him or whatever. But him making that comment about, oh, that just says something about Bret's ego, that he would think I would do that or whatever. And it's like, okay, man, but still, it was not tasteful in the way it was handled.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing is.
Another person that should hate WWE should be John Stossel. The reporters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the reporter was John Stossel and Richard Belzer. When Hogan choked out,
and just dumped him, like just let him drop on his head.
Yeah, I saw the, yeah. That was actually I heard about it. That was my first time actually seeing that. It was
nasty. That bump was nasty.
Dude was bleeding in the back of his head. I'm like, shit.
Yeah. Hogan just dropped him. It was like, yeah, you deserve to be sued, you big dummy.
That was not responsible at all, dude.
No,
that was not.
I mean, straight up choked the dude out live television. I'm like, what's wrong with you?
And Dr. D freaking hit dude in the freaking ear. Yeah. Like, he got lost freaking. I'm like, dude.
Like, I kind of understood the David Schultz thing, but not the Hogan thing for sure.
Yeah,
but David Schultz could have worked that slap a little bit and not hit him full blast.
He could have pulled it a little. He could have pulled.
I mean, David Schultz's hand was as big as dude's head.
I'm just saying,
it was awful. But so there, that's the thing.
That's protecting the business. That's protecting the business. But then it's like, okay, you
should have worked that slap a little bit. You should have made just a little bit now. Drop him, wake him up. Let him know you mean business, but don't hurt him. Don't bust an eardrum or whatever he did to him. I mean, it's like, bro.
Yeah, man. So
you got to work it a little bit. Okay, episode 5, we get into the World Wrestling Federation. Vince McMahon deciding to go public with the WWF, and that was the big news in 1999.
That whole thing was like, and he brought like that we can get to the different venues and whatnot. That's what they went to, the hotel casino type thing. They went to
that's right.
The restaurant thing. The XFL as well.
We're gonna get into that.
Yeah. It was like they want to try all these different things, and branch out, and whatnot, and.
None of it worked.
It didn't work. You and it's like, but he like just drop me. But it's like you when you're good at a niche, and you're in that's in your wheelhouse, whatnot. It doesn't necessarily like translate to other venues as well. So
right. which lets you know he wasn't, for all Vince gets credit for, he wasn't that smart of a businessman, because he should have seen this crap coming a mile away. Now, what he did do well was getting WCW for $2.5 million is all he paid for the trademarks and stuff. And the library.
That was the best investment one of the best investments he could ever made right there.
Because he knew he was going to make a ton of DVDs on this stuff and everything and make his money. Now, he made that money back and then some, of course.
And then some. And then
people don't understand. Vince did not buy WCW. A lot of WCW was sold to different directions, but he bought the IT. He bought the freaking library. And some of the talent.
And some of the talent.
Yeah.
So he got that stuff that he saw the value in. So you give him credit on that.
Yeah. He only bought what he wanted, and he made a ton of money off of it. So to that was very successful. That was a good business decision. Yeah. The money he lost from his publicly traded company on the XFL and WWF New York and all that stuff. Those were bad business ideas, just bad, and he should have known they were bad.
They try to say that first week was amazing.
Yeah, because they hyped it up, and then everybody found out it was a crap game.
Hey, Bob Costas went in on him on that though.
You got them all to watch, and then gave them a really crappy football game. And then they was like, "No, I'm good. I'll just wait for NFL season to come back on."
I feel levels were more than money he paid for it. Absolutely.
All right, so we had that, and then they got into the whole Triple H and Stephanie thing of them being on the road together due to the angle where they got married, and then they actually did fall in love and get married, and that Vince tried to apparently convince Stephanie to have the real wedding on pay-per-view.
I'm glad she had the conversation. No.
You carny piece of crap. What in the hell, man? He's like, no, we got to have the wedding on pay-per-view. He tried to pimp his daughter's wedding out, bro. You're not a genius. You're a carny. And you are
anything to make a buck, right?
You carny piece of crap. I mean, like, bro. Oh, yeah, and that pitch storyline, who knows if that's even true or whatever. I hope it's not true. I hope they are trying to work us with some stupid crap, because if that's true, that just furthers when we'll get to that later. Yeah. We will get to this, but we're going to get into now the lawsuit. WWF sued by the World Wildlife Fund or Foundation over the WWF trademark, and they ended up tapping out and letting the other WWF have it. And that's how we got WWE.
Oh, gosh. I ain't never heard no World Wildlife Fund, man. So it's like, okay.
Whatever.
Yeah. Dear God. All I know is it pissed me off because
get the F out.
It's literally.
Okay, bro. The people wearing them daggum t-shirts. I remember that.
All that did was piss me off because they couldn't use the Block logo and whatnot. So
my God. I remember working for like Memphis and Power Pro Wrestling and seeing like they used to, because they were developmental for WWF. Right. They had those daggum t-shirts, get the F out, for sale like at all their shows, and I'm just over here like, oh my God, if I see another one of the things, I'm gonna snap. So like they pimped that out too.
They should have went back to WWF name in my
yes, that probably would have been better. The Worldwide Wrestling Federation. They should have put World WWF.
God.
Anyway,
God.
Yeah, that probably would have been cool too. That's a good point. Then we get into the changing from the Attitude Era, because they made a big point about the Attitude Era, blah, 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 to the Ruthless Aggression Era and the big thing about John Cena debuting.
Yeah.
And here we go to some more carny bullcrap. Them trying to work us again to try to convince us that John Cena, I've heard the same narrative from John Cena over and over. I was about to get fired for real. And then all of a sudden, Stephanie told me you should rap on TV. And then all this stuff. And then about him confronting Kurt Angle. First off, dude, if they just brought you up from developmental and they put you on TV with Kurt Angle, they had you figured in. That's facts. You were already figured in. You were already a guy they were finna put the rocket behind and tried to anyway. So that whole narrative about I was about to get fired until I got the rap gimmick, I don't believe none of that crap for I don't believe none of that.
I don't know because the same thing was the debut, but then they had him afterwards or whatnot, and he still wasn't like getting over though. So it's like,
yeah, but they're still. Yes, but they were still figuring him out, and he was on TV every week. It's not like he disappeared from TV for 6 months and went back to developmental.
That's true too. So
same thing with Orton. These guys were figured in on the way in the door. They were already, like Stevie Richards says that a lot. You got to be figured in, and Richards never was. Obviously, he was an enhancement talent. He was a low guy, mid card at best. But these guys already they had the look and everything. The WWE already know these guys were figured in. He was allegedly smoked some weed and turned it. You're probably right, but
yeah.
Anyway, I don't believe in none of that stuff for a minute. And anyway, yes, he starts to get over, or he starts to get a little heat as a heel, then he gets over. Blah blah blah. We all know John Cena becomes a huge star, and that's a big narrative they shoved in our face. And then we get to the end of episode 5, and one of the last things I remember was Shane McMahon decides to leave the WWE because here we get this messed up story about Vince McMahon, about Shane asking Vince, can he take over the company or can he start having more power? And Vince handing him a knife and telling him, you basically are going to have to kill me here. And I don't want to repeat every little word he said.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically told him, you have to kill me with this knife, and if you don't, I'm gonna know you're not man enough to do it. And then I gotta take that into consideration too. Does a sane person say stuff like this?
It's crazy, dude.
If that is a true story,
yeah,
that is a psychopath, dude. If I was Shane, I would leave too after some crap like that. I would be like, yeah, I'm out. Like when you're dad. Yeah.
That was.
Well, they didn't talk about that on the thing, but yeah, we won't get into that today. We'll save that for a dumpster fire on episode down the road. Anyway. So yeah, there's nothing you could, dude. Vince, these producers didn't have to paint Vince in any negative light. Him saying this, and Vince being a part of telling this story, made him look bad, and he should have looked bad because he's insane.
A lot of stuff that came out of his mouth was like, will I ever retire or whatnot?
Yeah, and like if I retire, I don't know why people retire, because when you stop growing, you die.
Yeah,
you go ahead and die, or whatever he said. He said, "Go die." I'm
like, who says that, dude?
Like, I don't know about you, but I don't want when I'm 78 years old. I don't want to be working. I want to be chilling.
Exactly. So yeah,
I'm trying to chill at that age, bro, and enjoy my life, work, and everything I tried to work for to get there. And
hey, Twitch, Lovejoy, what's going on, bro? Appreciate the comment, man. We're doing awesome.
Everybody out there watching, please, if you see this now or later, make sure you follow us on Twitch, because shows like this will be Twitch exclusive in the future. We're gonna get there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's kind of the end of episode 5. Now, episode 6, like we talked about earlier, is when we really get into some interesting stuff, and this is where people are saying, I guess it's more of a out to get Vince type thing, but really, the first 5 episodes really weren't. He looked bad because he deserved to look bad. Like. Okay, so we get into the Battle of the Billionaires. Bobby Lashley and Umaga, Trump versus McMahon, hair on the line.
That's coming the entire commentary saying Vince doesn't own wrestling, wrestling owns Vince.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
All right, so what do you think about this? We talk about the Battle of the Billionaires and how, like, literally they made a point about Trump kind of, like, coming off like a wrestler in politics.
They even try to put a spin on that scrap. It's like,
no. I've said the same thing to people. It's like we're not talking about am I a Republican or Democrat right now. We're talking about Trump comes off as a carny. Like, and the media makes him a heel, and he comes off like a heel. And he's the hottest heel in America.
It's crazy.
Like, dude, he's the hottest heel. Whether you like him or not, he is a heel on TV, the way the news points him out. And it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he has. Vince does not. He's a nut. All right, then we get into McMahon faking his own death and trying to kill off the Mr. McMahon character, and that coinciding with Chris Benoit's actual family tragedy.
Oh boy, yeah. I guess in his mind it worked.
He blew himself up in a car and then was on TV the next week.
Oh boy.
Like, bro. And then
the ultimate freaking word, like, Donald Trump, I should call to see if I was okay.
Okay.
Boy.
And then literally the dumpster fire it was of them having a tribute episode of Benoit and then finding out later that night what actually happened.
Talk about walking something back, didn't they?
Yep.
They walked that one back for freaking years.
Yep.
Years.
And then we get that whole conversation with Austin and everybody about CTE, Chris Nowinski and his CTE research. Now, for those who don't know, CTE is chronic traumatic encephalopathy. I can't even say it. It's like encephalopathy or something like that. So anyway, this is a medical hypothesis that due to head trauma, you would eventually decay like your brain over time and age it early. And when you really read about it, it does come off silly, like the way it reads in terms of like medical terms and everything, because what the CTE people want you to believe is that Benoit doing headbutts off the top rope gave him head trauma. How many times do you think Benoit actually hit his head coming off the top rope with a headbutt? None. That's what I think.
If you do it freaking right, whatnot, you coming down and you lift your head before you actually make freaking impact, and you hit more with your shoulder instead of or your body instead of your actual head. But
but even your head isn't going to make contact with the mat.
No,
it's going to make contact with your opponent.
Yeah,
and that's not going to probably cause head trauma because you're not hitting steel and wood. Then you're hitting meat. And you're still, most of the time, if you watch him do it, he kind of put his hands up and stuff. It's like then you get into guys like I watched later about like Ken Shamrock taking that chair to the face from The Rock. He doesn't have CTE. All these guys from ECW that took multiple like headshots, none of these guys murdered their family and then killed themselves. Sandman didn't, New Jack didn't, none of these guys did that. And they all took way nastier shots to the head than Benoit. Show me a video where Benoit really took some nasty shot to the head. And there's not many of them.
Lovejoy said, JC Mbasha wants to be fair.
It's just, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. And I'm not defending Vince on this, but it is kind of like, so you scanned this dude's brain, and you found, some doctor decided he had the brain of an 80-something-year-old with dementia. But you're trying to tell me, you are also trying to sell me on the idea that somebody's grandpa at the nursing home wants to kill his family. Because you're telling me this actual 86-year-old with dementia probably has the same feelings Chris Benoit does.
So it's a lot of stuff that could be because it's subjective in there. So
yeah, because that doesn't necessarily add up. Because last time I checked, people with dementia don't do stuff like that. Like, I'm just saying that this is not happening in nursing homes everywhere due to dementia. We don't have something finding out that, man, because of that, dude went crazy and do this stuff in the nursing home. Yeah, it sounds ludicrous. Like, so that's the whole thing about that. And it's like, oh, whatever. So that part of the story we get through, and then we get into the wellness policy change. That's the big thing. And obviously there was a ton of blame for steroids with the stuff. And then they made a point to talk about wrestlers dying young. And this is another thing. It's like, this is a big thing. And this hits me kind of close to home too, is when you see all these wrestlers that died young that work for Vince. And it's a popular narrative to say, well, Vince doesn't deserve any blame for it at all because they did this to themselves or whatever. And it's like, I mean,
I get that. Well, I get that, but not directly, no. Indirectly, in response to schedules, grind, all that stuff, whatnot. All of those all those factors could didn't help that situation in whatever talent was doing at that time to be able to cope with the schedule that Vince had put them on. So directly, no. Indirectly, oh, absolutely.
Before the guaranteed money, when if you didn't work, you didn't get paid.
Exactly. So,
and he does deserve. So in essence, his the type of employment that he had these guys under was causing the issues.
Yeah, it wasn't even freaking employment. They were contractors.
They still are, which also makes him a terrible person in a sense, because again, we were made to think Ventura was a heel for trying to change the game. And really, he was the good guy. He was the one out there trying to help people. Like, he wanted to help the wrestlers take better care of themselves, have representation, not let Vince get away with draining them from all the money they're worth, and then sending them off on their way. Because you and I both saw all these guys on the indies after this, working for peanuts and trying to get a job then, because they were all messed up from working for Vince and stuff like that. And then he just tossed them aside, And that's the way a lot of these guys were, Test included. Like, he's a guy that died, in his, what was he, in his 30s, right? In his early to mid 30s.
Yeah.
And, like, he had a couple runs there, and then he kind of got tossed aside. There was really nowhere else to go. He made appearances in TNA, but there was nowhere else to make that kind of money and go and reach that. So it's kind of like, he developed all these problems. And then we get into the fact that finally, after the wellness policy, and again, Vince does not deserve the credit on this. This was pressured by the media and the fact that this is a publicly traded company.
Yeah.
They had to create a wellness policy and actually put their ex-talent through rehab. And the current talent went through rehab too, because that's the whole thing about Chris Masters going through and coming back smaller because he got off of the gear and stuff like that for a little bit. He came back like 30 pounds lighter and re-debuted on TV with a goatee, and he just didn't look the same. And then Triple H made a joke about it backstage on camera. And it's like, golly, man. So there you go. There's the big change with the wellness policy and how fake that was, because guys were still on steroids. They were just getting it from a doctor legally.
Yeah. So.
And they still are to this day, BT Dubs. There's still guys on steroids to this day getting it from a doctor. When Randy Orton came back, boy, come on. I'm just saying, that's exactly what I say. When he came back jacked like that, bruh, he got that growth hormone belly going on too. And I'm just trying to say, and CM Punk too. Don't get it twisted. Punk was skin and bones in AEW. This dude shows up on WWE and he's buff somehow, a little bit more anyway. He definitely on some TRT, straight edge my ass. All right, so we get through that. Triple H eventually becomes Office.
Yeah.
And he gets into that different roles, chief operating officer or whatever he was for a while.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Stephanie becomes Office, bigger point in Office too.
Yeah.
And then we get into all the changes that be made in the 2010s with the WWE Network and then the Peacock deal.
Yeah.
And then we roll into June of 2022.
Yeah.
This is when the stuff with Janelle Grant comes out originally, right? And it comes out that he had an NDA with her, and it was kind of null and void because Vince did not pay out the money he was supposed to pay her. He just decided he wasn't going to pay the rest of it. And then she decided, okay, well, I'm getting a lawyer, and here we go. Now we get a lawsuit. And Vince McMahon steps down from his position as the CEO and chairman of or whatever he was of WWE, only to return in January of 2023 in the worst PR move in the history of PR moves. No, probably not the worst, but still.
It's up there. He freaking came back. Stephanie stepped back down.
She hit the brick. She said, "Deuces, I'm not doing it." Right after, remember, and they showed this too. It was whenever he stepped down in 2022. She was on SmackDown leading that "Thank You, Vince" chant or whatever.
Yeah.
And then she said "Deuces" after he came back. So something ain't right.
Oh man, yeah.
I'm gonna say something ain't right. She left after he came back. So that was. I mean, I'm not going to read into it, but something ain't right there. And so then they sail to Endeavor, which gets merged with the UFC and everything into TKO.
Right.
McMahon is forced out after. Yeah. I believe after the federal indictment or whatever. Now,
So he became executive chairman of TKO or whatnot. Yeah, then the federal indictment came out. Yeah, and he stepped away again. Then he sold all his shares and whatnot. Yeah. And so it's like
after he told us he would never planned to retire. And that was on that episode. If you remember, he was talking. That was where we really got into "I will never retire," and then he was forced out basically by TKO.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, like you ain't got to retire. You ain't gonna be here.
Yeah, and
they bring up a good point. He was there whatnot, but he no longer had that control anymore. He didn't.
Maybe. We'll never know. I mean, nobody knows because there was all those rumors about Vince really starting to really having something to do with it still or whatever in people's ear and having some control over it. And it's like we'll probably never know until he's in the grave, and then we'll never know. Even then, he definitely won't be in charge then. Short of him being telepathic from the. It's like Vince McMahon, is in the afterlife, still running WWE via communication device.
Oh man, but overall, it was an entertaining watch.
Well, I'm going to ask everybody watching and you the question that they asked all the wrestlers and nobody would answer.
Yeah.
What is Vince McMahon's legacy?
I would agree with Tony Ellis. Hell of a promoter. He was
like the only one that actually answered that question. Like Cena, all the rest of them
really was. He really was like tarnished. Like it like in the midst of everything or whatnot. It's like everything that all of his contributions to the wrestling industry and whatnot.
What contributions?
Promoting. Just promote it. No matter the methods he used to acquire said talent and whatnot, he promoted.
I mean, the way I look at it, yeah, sure, he was successful. That's what you can say about him, but I don't think that's his legacy.
Okay.
Ultimately, no, he didn't create a He didn't. It's not like the Worldwide Wrestling Federation wasn't a profit-generating business before that.
Exactly.
He didn't create it. That's the thing. That is a fake narrative. He didn't create anything. His narrative, Okay, here's my opinion. This is Vince McMahon's legacy. Vince McMahon is a emotionally crippled, psychotic weirdo. He didn't create anyway. We won't get into that. He's an emotionally crippled, psychologically crippled individual who has an ultimate need for control. He's a guy who was very successful and did not care who he destroyed in the process in becoming that. He stepped over people to get where he was going. He sacrificed people. People died for him. They ruined their lives for him to become rich. He didn't create that he didn't create a business.
He didn't create anything. He purchased.
And
he purchased.
You're not giving credit to the freaking wrestlers. Let me tell you something. He didn't create shit. The guys, all those guys, the undercard guys, all those mid-card guys, all those guys that were on the road 300 plus days a year, busting their ass for very little money, trying to make him. Those guys made that business. Those guys made that business as much or more than Vince McMahon ever did. Vince McMahon was a guy that, let me tell you something. His legacy is he's a psycho-effed dude who took advantage of a lot of people, stepped on people, and again, sacrificed people's lives essentially to make him and his dream very successful. And at the end of the day, he is here's what I really want to say about him. His legacy is he's a morally corrupt piece of crap that did whatever it took to become rich and successful. He is morally corrupt, and WWE is morally corrupt. And that is the main reason when you look at this, when you look at everything he did and the reasons he had to have a wellness policy and the lives he ruined with the way he ran his business, with the way he used people. If you think that's okay, if you think that is really a success, then you are morally corrupt, and fuck you.
And with that, that has been our assessment of the McMahon Netflix documentary. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. Thanks to our friends over at Twitch for watching. We definitely appreciate that. Like Joey said, we're looking at different ways to extend the Bell's Boat brand. We're looking at doing some different things over at Twitch and stuff like this. We may tend to do that more on Twitch. So if you're not on Twitch, get over on Twitch and give us a follow over at Bells and Belts. Over on YouTube, everybody's our primary place right now. We thank everybody for tuning in. If you watch us for the first time, we definitely appreciate you tuning in. On the way out, make sure you give this video a like and make sure you subscribe to it. Make sure you hit all notifications so that when we go live, you will be the first to freaking know. Joey, Facebook, talk to us.
Yeah, we hope you are a part of our Facebook group, and if you're not, please join it. That's where we often discuss the type of shows we're going to do. Start polls to get our group members to help us decide the type of content we're going to put out. It really helps us out, your input, as well as we do have a business page that we sure hope you'll follow, because right now we are airing live on there as well on our Facebook platform, which is on our business page. And that's the only reason we have a group and a business page is because we cannot air live in the group. Right. You got to catch us on the business page. So make sure you like that. Please don't just follow it. Like it, please. It helps us get out there more in the Facebook algorithm and helps people find our content. And again, subscribe to us on all platforms because we've got some exciting exclusive content we want to do for each platform. And to get there with that, we've got to have that support.
Exactly. We thank one of the Platinum Source for joining us. Had some technical difficulty towards the end, but we definitely appreciate him taking out the time and joining us whatnot. And we invite everybody to join us this coming Wednesday when we're going to jump right back into our tag team series, right, Joey? I think we're at 1999, right?
Yep, we're about to wrap it up here. We got the 1999 episode, and then that week after that, we're going to be wrapping it up with our top 10 favorite tag teams of the 90s. Okay. And we got some more exciting stuff planned, including having a special guest on where we'll get to look at a very impressive championship belt collection So the next few weeks should be a lot of fun and exciting coming up here on Bells and Belts.
Absolutely. So we make sure you guys stay tuned in. Stay tuned to us here at Bells and Bells. You keep watching. We'll keep bringing it to you. For Joey, for Platinum Swords in his absence, I'm your boy Cedric D. And we will see you guys here next week here on Tuesday, 9 Eastern, 8 Central, right here at Bells and Belts.